I forgot to post a video, so I'm going to record this for today's video as well. But my apologies on that one. I'm normally pretty good on it. Use your words to define a rational number. Basically, you should have something to the fact any number that can be displayed as a decimal or as a fraction.
Wait, so, okay, do we both answer on the same day? I just want to make sure so you guys are on the right track.
Okay, for number one, plot the decimals. I don't know why they did this, but your numbers should have been underneath. So A was at 1 8/10, should have been literally right on that dot, on that line. B, 62 hundredths, so just a little past the 6/10. C, 2 25 hundredths. Let me do capital A, it looks better. Okay, so halfway between the second and third. D, 5 hundredths, so that was just past the 0. E, 1 37 hundredths, almost to the fourth tick. F, 2 9/10, that was the furthest out. So it should look something like that, although your numbers should have been underneath that above it. Write 4 decimals between 82 hundredths and 83 hundredths. You could have used anything, but the third digit, the first 2 digits should all be 0.82. Whatever the next digits are, just need to be whatever. It can literally be anything. But if you have anything from 0.83 or 0.81, those are all wrong. Order the decimals, greatest to least. This is a really big piece on this. So we started at 516 and 84 hundredths. Second, 516 and 24 hundredths. Third, 516 and 9 hundredths. 513 and 99 hundredths. 513 and 98 hundredths. 513 and 64 hundredths. 512 and 79 hundredths. 512 and 78 hundredths. And 512 and 4 hundredths. So hopefully you did the list, but for those of you that did the numbers, I added those for you. Any questions on that list? Okay, let's turn the page over. Just one, not two. There we go. What? Oh, she did it all in one. Second part of it, compare the values in each pair using our symbols. The easiest way to do this is to turn the fraction into a decimal. 7/10, literally you say it should be able to know it. That's 7/10, so that's going to be bigger than 48 hundredths. 2/5 is the same as 4/10, which is also bigger than 25 hundredths. 1/25 is 4,000 or 400, so that's going to be the same as an equal. 56 hundredths, 3/5 is 6/10, so that is going to be less than. Questions on number 4? Okay. 5. Again, you had to pay attention to which way they want the list, guys. Really easy way to get everything wrong is to put your list in the wrong order. This one said least to greatest. So I started at 12 and 47 hundredths, 12 and 88 hundredths, 12 and 96 hundredths, 13 and 9 hundredths, 13 and 32 hundredths, 13 and 6/10, 13 and 75 hundredths, and 14 and 1/10. You just had to start at the smallest. Anybody do the stretch? Nobody? Raise your hand if you did the stretch. Be proud of it. Only one on Miss McShann's side. I have 3. Okay. Let's look at this one really quickly. Easiest way again is to turn them all into the same format. Since we have kind of a mix of all of them, I would actually probably just go ahead and do them all to decimals. Decimals kind of my default. So this one would come out as 4 and 6 hundredths repeating. 27, that's going to go 3 times and 3/8. So 3 and 3/8 is going to be 125, 375. Percent is easy. I just move my decimal twice. 5 goes into 18 3 times, so 3 6/10. And 29/6 is going to go 4 times with 5 left over. 4 and 5, 6 is going to be 4.8. Roughly. Regardless, it's going to be the biggest one. So my smallest was the 18/5. No, it wasn't. The first smallest was actually 27/8. So 27/8, then the 18/5, then 3 61/100, then 385%. Then we had 4.05.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Then we have 4 6/10. Then we had 29/6. No, 470%. And then 29/6. Guys, anytime you do a list, number 1, count how many you had. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Number 2, count how many you actually wrote down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I did the same number. That means it should be in the right order. And one of the biggest, again, pay attention to which way it goes, least to greatest. How many of you got this stretch right? You got it all right, CJ? Oh, your mom told you, that's good. But do you understand what she was doing? You got it right. Okay. Hopefully from the work I showed, you guys should be able to understand what it is. We'll get to percents to decimals a little later. Fractions, you should already know. Okay, go ahead and open up in your modules. To page 127.
All right, guys, 127, hurry, hurry. Three. All right, as I told you during our math minute this morning, we are going to start with adding and subtracting decimals today. So I was going over some of the important things. Before we start getting into our new content, I want you to do the review. You are rewriting one of the numbers in each pair so that they have the same number of digits after the decimal point. I'm going to do the first one with you, and then I'm going to let you do the other 3. So how many decimal places does 4 6/10 have? 1. And how many decimal places does 5 8/100 have? 2. So they want you to rewrite the one that has the fewer decimal places as a decimal with the same number as decimal places of the other number. So now they both have how many decimal places? 2. Did I change the value of 4 6/10? No, by adding the 0 after the decimal, it does not change the value. Does that make sense? All right, I want you to do 2, 3, and 4, and I'm only giving you about 30 seconds. All right, everybody should be finished. Number 2, I have 17 602 thousandths and 9 2 tenths. Which one am I going to rewrite? 9 2 tenths, and how am I going to rewrite it? Add 2 zeros. Now I have 9 200 thousandths. They both have the same number of digits after their decimals. Number 3, 25 77 thousandths and 12 900ths. Which one am I rewriting? 12 900ths. And what am I going to do? Add a 0. And number 4, I have 2 5,467 ten thousandths and 62 1/10. Which one am I rewriting? And what am I doing? 3 zeros. Did I change the value of any of my numbers? No, they are still the same value. Any questions? All right, turn the page, please.
Raise your hand. Mr. Marshall wants to go to her locker and get her book now.
All right, estimation. Mr. Moore, did you want to go over this part?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, guys, last class we actually talked a little bit about estimation, and it's important, right? Talked about how sometimes they don't put the proper prices on at the commissary. And if you don't do an estimation as you're going through to understand what your total should be, you may not catch it. But if you've done a good estimation, that's the whole key on it. It doesn't give you exactly, but you should be in the right neighborhood. And I'll be honest, looking at the quizzes, we got some guys that you should have been doing some estimating because you'd have realized how terrible some of your answers were. But this is a really helpful strategy just to get you an idea if you're in the ballpark. Because it gives you a sense of the reasonableness of a solution. What does that word mean?
It could explain why the answer is that.
Okay, explain why the answer is that.
So I think you said that was something we could share something and like your reasons why you did that.
Your understanding. So if I get an answer of 480 when I added 3 and 8/10 and 6 and 12/10, should I get an answer of 380? No, so that's reasonableness. Basically what I'm saying is if you did something like that, you probably forgot to do the decimals. But reasonableness gives you an idea if you're in the right area. Yes, Sophia? I already said yes, hurry up. So all we're going to do, Jenny has a goal to run at least 25 kilometers each week. Her fitness app tracks the distance that she runs each day and gives her a summary at the end of the week. The table shows a summary. So round each decimal value to the nearest whole number and then estimate the total. So this is basically kind of what we were just doing. So you're going to round them and estimate. Once you've done that, we're actually going to look at number 2. But I want to give you guys like a minute to do that part. Go. Okay, guys. Rounding should be really simple. Literally all you're doing is looking at the place value after the decimal. If it's a 5 through a 9, I go up. If it's a 0 through a 4, my first number stays the same. So 7 means that the 4 becomes a 5. A 5 means the 5 becomes a 6. A 2 means the 6 becomes a 6. A 1 means the 2 becomes a 2. A 6 means the 1 becomes a 2. I add those up. I've got 10, 21. So, do we think she made her total distance?
No.
No. She probably missed it.
Friday, Thursday, she was slacking.
She did slack off at the end of the week. Okay? Number 2, Samuel added the distances that Jenny ran. Said she ran about 14 kilometers this week. We estimated it at 21. Is 14 reasonable? No, it's really not, is it? Because that's way off. So again, that gives you a good advantage on doing an estimate. Was the estimate hard to do? No, that's the whole idea. Estimate should be easy. But it gives you an idea if I'm reasonable. So now we know Samuel probably made a mistake. We can guarantee it because they gave us the thumbs down. When you look at his work, what mistake did he make? Keegan?
You should have estimated all of the numbers before adding.
Good. If he'd estimated, he'd understood he did it wrong. But what was his actual mistake? He did not line up the decimals. Specifically, we have 2 numbers. He should have added a 0 on to line up the decimals, right? Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry? Gigi? Good. He should have, for those 2 numbers, he should have slid them over one space to line those decimals up. Does that make sense? Okay. Turn the page, pull out your highlighters and your vocabulary sheets. If you don't have them out yet, pull it out right now. Because, okay, here is our big vocab, a trailing zero. A trailing zero is any zero that appears to the right of both the decimal point and every digit other than zero.
Why is that connected to point that highlighter not finding? Wait, that's on our vocab sheet.
Yes, that's why I said you should have your vocab sheet out. We're giving you the first term. Good job, Lucas, actually paying attention. So here is our big deal on this, guys. When you add or subtract decimals, it is important to align digits in like place values. So if I give you a series of decimals, step one, to make sure you're on the right track, do a quick estimation. 3 4/10 becomes a 3 because the 4/10 means that it stays. 9 5/10 means it becomes a 10 because it's going to go up 1. 12 8/500 means it becomes a 13 because it goes up 1. I add those up. 13 and 13 is 26. That tells me about where I should be. When you do the actual addition or subtraction of decimals, your key concept is my decimal places must be lined up for all of the numbers.
Guys, make sure you have trailing zero as the first one on your vocabulary sheet. It is number one on your vocabulary sheet. You should write that in the blank.
Trailing zero, right here where it says it. That's the word for the definition. Okay, as we go down my list, you can see with the 5/10 I needed 2 trailing zeros to get them all in the same decimal place. With the 8/500 I needed 1 trailing zero to get the same number of decimal places. Once I have all the right decimal places, now I can start my addition. 1 0 and 0 gives me a 1. 2 0 and 5 gives me a 7. 4 and 5 is 9. 9 and 8 is 17, so I would carry a 1. 1 and 3 is 4, plus 9 is 13, plus 2 is 15, so I carry another 1. 1 and 1 is 2, so my answer came out as 25 and 771 thousandths. Is that close to 26?
Yes.
So was it a good estimate? Do I feel confident in my answer? Yes. That's what an estimation will do, guys. Really quick way to get an idea of what my answer should be. Should give you better confidence that my answer is correct. So if we go back to our situation getting started, how many total kilometers did Jenny actually run? So now we want you to go back. They gave you 5 numbers. You need to actually add them. Make sure you are following rule number 1, lining up your decimal places. Once you have finished that, you have 3 problems on number 2 to do. So we'll give you guys about 7 minutes to go ahead and do both of those problems.
Okay, I told you whenever he was giving you directions to go back to page 128 and use the numbers they gave you for Jenny's running. So let's look at those numbers. Who can tell me what the first number was for Monday?
Monday was 4.78.
Give me vocabulary. 4 and 78/100ths. Next.
Wait, you made a mistake. It's 4.75.
75?
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Thank you. Next.
5.5.
5 and 5/10. We've got to learn how to say our place value, guys. Next.
4.25.
6 and 25/100ths. All right, Ava. 2 and 15/100ths. Okay. 1 and 6/10, and that should be the last one, yes? All right, so we've talked about those trailing zeros, so I am going to add my zeros to make them all even. Make sense? What? So what was the most important rule that I followed other than the trailing zeros? RL? I lined up my decimals, so now I can add them together. 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15. 1 plus 7? 8 plus 5, 13 plus 2, 15 plus 1, 16 plus 6. Carry my 2, bring down my decimal. 2 plus 4, 6 plus 5, 11 plus 6, 17 plus 2, plus 1. 20. So she ran a total of 20 and 2500ths kilometers. Was our estimate of 21 kilometers reasonable?
Yes.
Yes, it was very close. All right, number 2. What's the most important thing I need to do before I add these together? Line up my decimals. So I have 15 and 8500ths, 3 and 2/10, add a 0, and 7 and 300ths. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 plus 2 is 10. Bring down my decimal. 1 plus 5 is 6 plus 3, 9 plus 7.
What are you talking about?
I'm adding these together.
What did you do?
Carry my 1. 1 plus 1. 26 and 800ths. Yes?
Understand about the top one.
What?
Because we rounded the whole numbers.
Huh?
The decimals aren't going to be as close as you'd expect.
But is it reasonable?
Yes.
Okay, that's all we're worried about. All right, number 4. Again, we line up our decimals. 4 and 347ths. 347 thousandths, sorry. 18. Why did I put 18 there? Where's a decimal and a whole number? Lucas? It's always after the ones place. So it's here, and I add 3 trailing zeros. Then I have 130 and 6/10 with 2 trailing zeros, and 51 and 1/10 with 2 trailing zeros. 7 plus 0 is
7,
4 plus 0 is
4,
3 plus 6
9,
plus 1.
10,
Bring down my decimal. 1 plus 4,
5,
5 plus 8,
13,
13 plus 1,
14,
1 plus 1,
2,
plus 3,
5,
5 plus 5,
10.
and carry my 1. So 204 with 47 thousandths. Any questions about that one? And letter C. 5 and 804 thousandths. 126 and 1900ths, add a 0. 7 and 236 thousandths. And 38 and 3/10 with 2 trailing zeros. So that's 4, 12, 10, 12, 15. Carry my 1. 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 plus 6 is 12. Plus 7 is 19. Plus 8 is 27. What? Oh, I looked at, sorry. So that should be a 3. There we go. 177 and 530 thousandths. If 6 look like a 0 to me.
You guys is
Whoops.
than you.
No, they just aren't blind like I am. We're good. Because I really am blind.
Moving. Let's go to page 130. The nice thing is, and it's kind of a mixed thing, in decimals, we basically have 3 different rules that you guys have to memorize. We're working on our first rule today, which is 2 of our operations, adding and subtracting. Our rule is you have to line up the decimal places. So it's actually a relatively easy rule, but you got to memorize it. There's no way around it. You use a similar algorithm for subtracting decimals. So let's look at 2 different subtraction problems. Our first step again is going to be to estimate, so I know the approximate difference. The estimating should be really easy. 18 and 2/10 means that's just going to be 18. 3 and 9/10 means that's going to round up to 4. 18 minus 4 gives me 14. So I have a good idea now where my answer should be. Then I line up the decimals. so that like place values are in the same column, and I just subtract. In this case, the 9100ths, I needed to add a trailing zero. Okay? When I'm going across, as I have a 5, I can do that one easy. But a 0, I can't do 0 minus 1, so I need to borrow. That made it a 1. That becomes a 10. 10 minus 1 gave me the 9. Can't do 1 minus 9, so I had to borrow again. That became a 7. That made that now an 11. 11 minus 9 gave me my 2. The nice thing with adding and subtracting, my decimal literally just comes straight down. So when I get to the decimal place in the numbers, that's the decimal place in my answers. 7 minus 3 gave me a 4. 1 minus nothing gave me a 1. It's 14 and 295 thousandths, close to 1400.
Yes.
Yeah, so does that make it a reasonable answer?
Yes.
Yeah, so chances are I did something correct. Okay? Our second one, 22 and 4/10. 4/10 means I just keep the 22. 8 900ths means I make it a 9. 22 minus 9 gives me a 23. In this case, now my first number has less decimal places, meaning I need to add those trailing zeros. That is really critical when my top number has less places. I have to add those trailing zeros. It is kind of optional if the second number has less zeros. If you're like Richard and you can understand that it's a blank spot means there's nothing there, you don't necessarily have to do it, but it's a good habit to get into. Okay? Because that's going to help us show our work. When I have the zeros at the end, I have to keep going over till I find a number I can borrow from to do the subtraction. So I go all the way to the 4. That became a 3. That became a 10. So I crossed it out to make it a 9. So this one now becomes a 10. 10 minus 6 is a 4. I can do the 9 minus 3 because I already had to do the double borrowings. That is now a 9. Made it a 6. Can't do 3 minus 9, so I have to borrow from this one. Makes it a 1. That's now a 13. It makes this a 4. Again, my decimal place comes straight down into my answer. Can't do 1 minus 8, so I needed to borrow again. Became 11. 11 minus 8 is 3. 1 minus nothing, 13 and 464 thousandths. Is 13 close to 13? Yeah, so probably a reasonable answer. Is this making sense why we estimate? Is it hard to estimate? Honestly, it shouldn't be. The whole idea of estimating is make the math easy for you. But it gives you that reasonableness check. So let's look at our getting started. We figured she actually ran 20 and 25 kilometers. How many more kilometers does she need to reach her goal of 25 for the week? She's got the rest of the weekend. And then we're going to calculate each difference. So again, you got 2 problems, numbers 3 and 4. We'll give you guys about 7 minutes. Go ahead and start working. Okay, our first one, it's a word problem. Guys, quiet down. So, big hint, whenever I'm going to do subtracting, I always put the larger number on top. So, 25 is larger than 20, so I'm going to do 25, subtracting 20 and 25 hundredths. In this case, I have a whole number. My decimal is always at the end of the whole number if I don't see it. Meaning I need to add in 2 trailing zeros to the 25.
We're talking while he's talking.
We're going to start by borrowing from the 5, make it a 4, so I get across to my last 0. So 10 minus 5 gives us a 5. 9 minus 2 is a 7. My decimal comes straight down. 4 minus 0 is 4. 2 minus 2 is 0. So we need to answer it because it's a word problem. She needs to run 4.75 more kilometers. Okay? Again, as we start on the difference, we start by writing the larger number on top, 459 and 6/10, subtracting 12 and 43 hundredths. Again, our big key is making sure that those decimals are lined up. Add trailing zeros where needed. JG, you're not supposed to be talking right now. I borrow from the 6. 10 minus 7 gives us a 3. 5 minus 4 is a 1. My decimal comes straight down. 9 minus 2, 7. 5 minus 1, 4. And the 4. Same thing on our next one. 9 and 9/10. I all lines up around the decimal. 8 minus 0, 9 minus 0. 9 minus 9 is 0. Can't do 8 minus 9, so I'm going to borrow. 18 minus 9 gives me 9. 5 minus nothing, 59 and 98 thousandths. And our last one, we're subtracting. And actually, I'm going to move the 17 over on top of this one because I need the trailing zeros. So I borrow from the 4, make it a 3, coming across. Gives us 10 minus 6 is 4, 9 minus 5 is 4. 3 minus 2 is 1, my decimal comes down. 7 minus 3 is 4, and the 1 comes down. Questions on any of those? Everybody's okay on them? Lucas, is that a question or a high five? So you got them all right? Good job. David?
Well, once you take away from that 4 and goes to the 0 above the 5, that would be 10 minus 5.
No, because I had to borrow from that 10 to make the last one a 10. So when I borrowed it now as a 9. So remember, when I'm borrowing, I got to go all the way across place by place. Okay? Do you understand the issue? Good. Let's go to our next page. So we are now going to give you some practice. Use the algorithms you've learned for adding and subtracting to solve each problem without the uses of a calculator. So we've got 4 word problems for you. Step 1, mark your text. Step 2, figure out if I'm adding or subtracting. Step 3, do the work. Step 4, write your complete answer in a word sentence, because these are all word problems. So we have 4 word problems. We will give you guys 10 minutes. Begin. Guys, quiet down. No. Sorry, we're almost out of time. We got to go. Amy finished first leg in 87.924, second in 79 and 600ths. How long did it take her to complete? So if I'm putting them together, what operation is that? Addition. So I'm going to add 87 and 924 thousandths to 79 and 600ths. One trailing 0 gives me 4, 8, 9, 16, sorry. 166. It took her 166 and 984 thousandths seconds. Make sure you have the units to finish. Our second one, he completed the 100 meter in 92 and 542 thousandths. Did the 100 meter in 95 and 6/10. How much faster? So if it's faster, I'm now looking for the difference, meaning I'm going to subtract. Again, put the bigger number on top. And when I look at bigger number, I'm talking about value, not digits. Put the one with the larger value on top. Subtract 92 and 542 means I need 2 trailing zeros. So I'm going to borrow all the way across. 8503. So Chris was 3 and 58 thousandths seconds. Again, don't forget your unit. Faster. Our third one, it's 639 from Atlanta, 881 Atlanta to New York, going through Washington, D.C. How much farther is it from Atlanta to New York City than Atlanta to Washington? So my first one, I'm actually going to subtract. So 881 and 4/10, subtracting 639 and 1800ths means I need to add 1 trailing 0. Gives me a 3, 2, 2 decimal. Borrow again. 2, 4, 2. It is 242 and 2200 miles further. And Atlanta, and then how many has it traveled? Now I'm adding them. So instead of subtracting, I'm just going to redo the problem and add it. 881 and 4/10 plus 639 and 1800ths gives me 8, 5, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15. It is what 1,520 and 5,800 miles from Atlanta to NYC.
She wants to know if you're supposed to add something back to it because they went back to Atlanta. It's a round trip.
Oh, thank you. I should have doubled it. But I was hurrying so I can get to the homework, so we're skipping that one too. Go to your homework, page 133. Our first part, our journal entry, explain why estimating is helpful. So you should have a lot of different examples already for how it can be helpful for you. Calculate. Guys, please be quiet because this is on the recording.
Right now, you are listening to corrections.
Calculate each sum or difference. Realize the rule is the same. Line up my decimal place even though the operation may be different. Make sure you add the trailing zeros, especially in subtracting. If there is addition and subtraction, I'm literally just going from left to right. Okay? Make sure you go left to right. That's how the order of operations works on those. The newborn weighs 92 and 8/10 at birth. Its mother weighs 2,024. What is the difference? That means I'm going to subtract. Don't forget a full sentence answer. Christina wants to purchase 4 items at the sporting goods store. The item she wants to buy are soccer cleats for 24, shin guards for 12, soccer socks $4.49, soccer ball $19.95. She pays for the items with a $100 bill. How much change will she get? So our whole question actually revolves around that last part. So you're going to add all 4 of the numbers and subtract it from 100 in order to find your answer. Make sure you answer the question that is asked. If all you do is tell me how much it costs, you're wrong. Any questions on your homework? Okay. Good luck, guys.